Hello, everybody. My name is Mauricio Palacio. I'm the CEO of Eventia, and I will be your host today. Hola a todos, me llamo Mauricio Palacio, soy el CEO de Eventia. I'm having a small issue here with sound. There it goes. I'll be ready to go. Perfect. Hola a todos, bienvenidos a Get Together. Soy Mauricio, CEO de Eventia y seré su anfitrión el día de hoy. Bienvenue à tous, bonjour à tous. Bienvenue à Get Together. Je suis Mauricio Palacio, CEO d'Eventia, et je serai votre hôte aujourd'hui. So, wow, this is our third edition of Get Together. We're very happy to have you, all of you here. It's a very exciting moment. We started 6 months ago with a small event. We had a big summit 2 months ago, and we didn't want to close 2020 without wrapping up and looking to the future into 21 and seeing what is coming ahead of us. So, wow, 2020, really, what a roller coaster. It's been a very challenging time, especially for our events industry. It's been really a very hard, very challenging, but it's pushed us into innovation. It has pushed it into transforming our activities and our business, and it's really taken us into these formats of virtual events. But actually, this has also been a time of opportunity, and for those companies that have grabbed this wave of innovation, we've been building new things, and actually we're building the future of the event industry. So before we go farther into the subject of today, I wanted to show you a little bit the virtual stage in Eventia and make sure that you get the best experience of it. So for all of our Spanish speakers, here on the right, on the left, you have a Spanish button. So the Spanish button will give you access to our simultaneous translation in Spanish. So if you activate the Spanish channel, make sure that you mute the original audio. So also on the right, we have the different menus. So you will find the program. We have 3 different activities. You can scroll around the program. You will find the list of attendees. So you can explore everyone who's around and just send a chat and start a conversation with others. There's a small page with our attendees profiles. So make sure that with our sponsor profiles, so make sure that you go and explore them. Thanks so much for our sponsors for making this possible. And there's a very fun photo booth with filters, boomerangs. So please, I invite you all to take a look at it, take a picture, and leave us an image of you for the community. Finally, we have a chat with 2 channels with general conversations about event trends in 2021, but also about engagement. So we all wait you there to discuss with the community. Now, very important, in physical events, we can always clap, we can always shout, we can make some noise. But here we can't, and I'm already very happy to see that many of you are expressing your emotions with the emojis. So I want to see hearts, thumbs up, and claps flying. Yeah, I can see them, so that's great. We want this event to be engaging. We want to show our speakers that you're there. So smash those emojis, destroy those emojis. I want to see them flying. Awesome, very nice. So yeah, 2020, what a ride. It's been really a crazy time. And I want to show you this. Julius Solaris, and I'm very sure that most of you are familiar with Julius, was tweeting this yesterday. The first doses of vaccines were administered today in the US. This is the beginning of the comeback of the event industry. So after this crazy time, what is coming ahead for us in 2021? Is this vaccine really the comeback of physical events? What is going to happen with the online events in 2021? So today, I have a great guest to discuss all of these questions. Please welcome Will Curran. Will is one of the most influential persons in the event industry in the United States. Will is the founder of Endless Events, and Will is also the host of Event Icons, one of the longest running shows in the event industry. Will, thank you for being thank you for being with us today. I'm very happy. It's been like 6 months we've been talking about this, so I'm very happy to see the day coming.
I know, finally, we've get together, no pun intended, and get to chat a little bit. I'm excited to share a little bit about, what is the future of 21 behold, and everyone can see a little bit into my glimpse of my crystal ball that I've been hiding away for the entire year, and now I'm just busting out right now.
Where are you tuning in from?
I am in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's normally very sunny and warm, but today is very chilly and cold. I think the winter is finally hitting us, but super excited. I will admit to all our Spanish-speaking audience that I do know a little bit of Spanish, but I'm not even going to try to do it and mix in the trends and everything like that, because you guys are just going to make fun of me for my, high school level Spanish classes.
It'll be fine. We have someone who's doing the translation for them, so don't worry about that. So, Will, today we have a very special partnership with SparkUp, which is an engagement and interactivity platform. We've been integrated with SparkUp. So on the left of the screen, you see an interactivity tab. So I want you to open that tab. And I want us to tell you, where are you tuning in from? So make sure you open it. It's gonna load. You just have to click on join. And then where are you tuning in from? Are you joining from China, from Japan, from Korea, or like myself, are you joining from France? Let us know where you're joining from.
Love to see it. Yeah, I'd love to see where everyone's coming in from around the world.
Perfect. Let's see the results come in. We're also going to see them on the screen in a moment if the team...
Everyone's really awesome. They're starting to put it in the chat. So everyone who's posting in chat, Kathy, Chris, Yuri, Maria, there's actually an interactivity button over on the right-hand side, that blue interactivity button. Go ahead and click on that and put your answers on in there. You'll see that this is where you'll be able to put it into here to join into the word cloud. So everybody who's using the chat right now, go ahead and click that interactivity button. That's blue over
so
on the
everybody, so for all the actions that we're going to do, all the way to the left on the screen, there's interactivity, is the green tab. You can open it. Perfect. So we have USA, Colombia, Mexico. Great. It really seems like a very international crowd, Will. So
yes,
the stage is all yours. Thanks again for being here.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm excited. So let's dive into some 2021 trends. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. So we're going to be using that interactivity button throughout the entire talk. So make sure that you guys have that ready to go. You're logged in, you've joined, so then that way you can participate in those awesome word clouds that we have going on. I'm going to have another one coming up really, really soon. So for those who don't know me, my name is Will Curran. I'm the Chief Event Einstein at Endless Events. Every year for the last a gazillion years, I've been writing the #1 ranked event trends guide in the events industry. So naturally, everyone kind of turns to me and say, hey, what's next? And I thought this year especially is interesting because a lot of people really are like, well, what's next? When is the hybrid thing coming? What does next year's big trends look like? When is the events industry coming back? As Julius's tweet alluded to at the beginning as well. Everybody's asking these same questions. And I'll hopefully provide some insight into there. And a lot of you might be thinking, for all my fans that are out there who are shouting out in the chat, keep making that emoji noise and keep making some noise in the chat. I want to see the chat flying through. That includes you, Anna. I'm looking at you from all the way from Spain. I'd love to hear for all our fans. They know that I am actually a big fan of not doing these event trend guides. I think a lot of these event trend guides, we have an episode of Event Brew, which is our actual podcast that we talk about industry related issues and things like that. We have a whole episode designed and talking about why these trend guides need to die. And I actually argue for the fact that a lot of them just are blah and suck. So why is somebody who hates event trends guides giving an event trends presentation? Well, it's because I believe that they can be done better, and that everything everyone's talking about on these trends guides is stuff that doesn't really matter to event people, that we can do this way better, and there's stuff that you actually need to be paying attention to that are more strategic and larger thinking than, what color linens should we make the tables? Or what's the next event technology that's going to be the next big thing? There's more stuff to this by far. So to give you guys a little bit more interaction, we got the emoji buttons, we got the chat, we got the interactivity button. I'm going to give you guys one more way to interact. For all my note takers who are out there, in the chat, I posted a link to a Google Doc that anyone can edit. So all throughout my entire talk, if you want to take notes, I'm going to be posting all my links that I mentioned for blog posts and articles all inside that Google Doc. So go ahead and copy that Google Doc. You can join it right now. It's set that anybody can edit it. So that is your guys's, you, the audience, that's your document. I'll leave it up forever that you guys can collaborate in it, take notes, do whatever you want to. Screenshots, take weird pictures of my face as I'm trying to explain event topics, whatever you want to do. That doc is all your guys's. And I actually include a link to our podcast, Event Brew, and our other podcasts we have. We actually have those 3 podcasts as well. And a couple other links that I'm going to be mentioning throughout the entire talk. But feel free to use that, write whatever you want, collaborate, whatever you guys want. It's your document. All right. So before we dive in, I want to get some good feedback from you guys on the interactivity. I know a lot of you guys are like, whoa. I'm clicking around screens. I got multiple windows up. You guys, choose your own adventure. Whatever you guys want to do in terms of interaction, this is all you guys. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the interactivity panel. I'm going to ask a question right now. What word would you define 2020 when it comes to the events industry? So I'd love to post it in there. Start putting your answers. Again, click that green interactivity button over that way. To be able to essentially, again, answer the question, what word would you describe the events industry in 2020? While we're getting those answers in, I'm going to talk a little bit about being strategic when it comes to your events. So while you guys are filling that in, let's talk about strategy. And strategy is everything when it comes to events, guys. Whenever it comes to these trends and everything like that, we need, as an events industry, to get out of execution, like the actual physical showing up and building the events and things like that, the actual laying out of platforms. We need to move away from, hey, what does the color and the design and, you know, all these things like that. And we need to start getting strategic. If we as an events industry want to level up beyond 2019 to 2020 and beyond and become a really recognized industry that really does what it's supposed to do, which is change human behavior, we have to start thinking more strategically. So what does this mean? This means that instead of having those conversations around design and execution, you need to be talking strategy. So, you know, this is awesome, this word cloud coming in already. We got innovation, crisis, decombobulation. I love that word. Opportunity. I definitely agree with opportunity. Again, like so much opportunity right now for the events industry to continue to grow. Oh, that's really sad. Non-existent. I don't know. I think there's been lots of events industry stuff happening this year, whether it's whether we've been not able to meet in person or not. Unpredictable, debilitated. Worldwide, yes. Helpful, bountiful, roller coaster. Very interesting that the 2 major words that we're getting out of this are crisis and innovation. I want us to focus on the fact that when you have a crisis, there's always opportunity when it comes to it. I can tell you guys right now that my company was designed primarily producing hybrid and in-person events before all this happened. And we took the opportunity to focus on the virtual and focus on how can we create these opportunities. So in crisis, there's always opportunity. And whenever there's opportunity, there is innovation. I mean, amazing all the technologies that we have gotten in the last year, right? It's like, imagine that the virtual event space, which was like 1% of the event market maybe before, now represents 100%. And look at how much it pushed every single company to innovate and to do new things, to make things better. I mean, heck, even Zoom got way better over the last year. And who ever thought that Zoom would get any better? So, okay, so let's go back into strategy and talk a little bit about strategy. So now you're starting to say, okay, well, I want to get strategic. I want to get to that C-level conversation with CMOs and CEOs at the table and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So how do we start to do it? Again, is to start thinking differently. So let's start with this. Everyone's number one question when it comes to next year is, when is the events industry coming back, right? I mean, in fact, the fact that we started off with a tweet saying, hey, here's the start of the events industry starting to make its comeback. I definitely think, and I have a very strong opinion on this, is that as an events industry, we are doing such a poor job at looking at other event professionals to answer the question of when we're coming back. And, you know, I'm included in this. You guys should not be looking for Will to give you a date when we're going to come back. Instead, you need to be listening to the scientists, the medical professionals, the doctors. They're the ones who are going to tell us when it's safe to come back. No one else. Anyone else in the events industry who's saying, yeah, we're doing events in person, it's totally safe, it's all good. You know, those people are not the ones that are capable of knowing when it's going to be safe and okay to come back to events. So as much as I want to say here and put on a date on it, like June 2021, December 2021 events are going to come back and we're going to go hybrid, all those things like that. I can't give you the answer. So that's the one thing I want to implore for you is as event professionals, stop listening to other event professionals when it comes to when we're coming back. It's all going to always be optimistic and it's always going to be centered around not knowing the full picture, right? So I want to say though, I'm just as excited. I know I can sometimes sound like a pessimist, but I'm always excited for the idea of us going back. And that's a journey into hybrid events. Everyone wants to talk about hybrid, so I'm not going to cover it as an event trend because I think everybody understands what hybrid is. But I want to define hybrid in my terms and why I think that it's important for us to move towards this new model. For me, a hybrid event is not just you have a virtual audience and you have an in-person audience and they, are coincidentally happening at the same time. That might have been hybrid events in 2019, but 2021, for hybrid events to exist, there needs to be a blending and a combining of the two audiences. That a person in the virtual audience needs to have the same level of experience as the person in the in-person experience. And that they can commingle and merge together, that it doesn't feel like this awkward, I'm a fly on the wall, or that virtual audience over there that exists. But instead they come together. And I'm happy to give answers to this as well. Shout outs to Glenn, #science. I'm happy to give some more detail into that. But then everyone starts to say, okay, well, what is this path to us getting back to hybrid? And everyone wants to see it as this perfect straight line, right? Where you have over here on the left-hand side, you have where we are right now, and over on the right-hand side, you have going back to hybrid events. Everyone thinks it's a perfect straight line that, we're going to get a vaccine and boom, we're doing hybrid events again. No, I think the line is going to look like this. We're right here, and it's going to be all the way messy along the entire way. Because there's all these factors to us going back and having hybrid events, right? So let's talk about the first one, which is like potentially having a vaccine, right? Everyone's like, yeah, we're gonna have a vaccine, everything's gonna be great. Okay, that's one element to come into it. But let's also look at the fact that we have to have clean venues in safe environments that our attendees can go to, right? We need to have processes around, making sure that our attendees aren't getting sick, right? There's a lot of things we have to figure out. So for example, what happens if someone doesn't have the vaccine? Does that mean that we now have the authority as event professionals to discriminate based on who's been given a vaccine and who hasn't? Do we create this, what's been talked about like a vaccine passport that people have to check to know you have your vaccine? Do you have to, get tested before you come in? All these sort of things, right? So that perfect line to getting a vaccine is already crooked and a little messy. We got to figure it out. And then we got to figure out, the cleanliness and the processes. That's another thing over here. But then ultimately, we also have to worry about attendee trust. We can have a vaccine, we can have the cleanest venues in the world, and we as an events industry can want this like we've never wanted anything else in our lives before. But if our attendees do not trust that they can come to an event and be safe, or even desire to come back to an event, then none of it matters, right? We're going to have this huge uphill battle. So as we're starting to figure this out, that straight line to hybrid is really more like all over the place. We're going to take 10 steps back, go 5 steps forward, go 2 steps back, 10 steps forward, right? We're going to be all over the place when it comes to this. And I think that it's important to know too that there's definitely these two paths that we're going to go down to as well. It's not just like, hey, we absolutely, as much as we want to go to hybrid, if all those things don't exist and all those perfect things like trust and safety and vaccines and all that sort of stuff comes back perfectly, then really we might be leaning more towards a more virtual with a sprinkle of hybrid next year, rather than what everyone wants, which is hybrid, and then one virtual event. It's important to recognize too with your attendees is that now that they've gotten a taste for what virtual is like, the amount of events they're going to attend is going to go down. How many people out here used to go to, not produce, but attend 2 conferences a year, Emoji React, three conferences a year, anyone 4 conferences a year, those crazy people, the serial conference goers, 10 conferences a year, right? So those people who went to multiple conferences a year are going to say, you know what, instead of going to like 10, I'm going to go like 9 of them virtually. And I'm going to pick the best one. And I'm going to invest my time to fly there, my actual dollars I'm going to invest in there, and then also as well the effort and the energy they're going to expend into it too, right? So that's going to totally change when it comes to it. So okay, so that's just a little bit about the journey that we're going to get into when it comes to hybrid and how we're going to go there. So now, usually everyone right now, Ingrid, thank you so much for joining us from Guatemala. We really appreciate you. The next thing I want to know is, before I dive into telling you guys a little bit of my like more surface level, exciting, sexy trends that I want you to be aware of, I'd love in the interactivity panel, I want to ask you guys, what do you think the biggest trend for 2021 is going to be? Don't put the word hybrid. So I challenge you to think beyond hybrid. What do you think is also another big trend when it comes to events in 2021? Use the interactivity panel, the little green button on the right-hand side, that direction for you guys. Go ahead and put that in there and tell us, what do you think the biggest trend for 2021 is going to be? We'll get that word cloud going. I love to see it, guys. While we're doing that, I want to give some shout outs to all my chat crew, everyone who's chatting. I see we got Eduardo from Mexico, Natalie from Colombia. Wow, this is awesome. I see one of my homies, Chris Simmons, here from Orlando. Thank you so much. All right, so yeah, so post your biggest trends, and then also you'll see some people are starting to post. If you agree with them, give them a little heart. So go ahead and post them in there, in that right on in there. So post what you think your biggest trend is, and then go start hearting the ones that you also agree with. It's okay. We know this is, you want yours to be the top one, but feel free to, if you agree with it, give it a heart. All right. So far, smaller is winning. I like that. Smart. So while we're talking about that, and that's going everywhere, keep hearting and keep adding your trends. Keep typing them. If you've got multiple, feel free to put them in there too. So when it comes to smaller, yes, I definitely agree with that. We're going to be moving beyond this model of like putting 2,000 people in a general session room or putting 5,000 people in a concert. But instead, what's going to happen is you might have a very, very small in-person intimate experience. And then what you're going to end up doing is doing what's called a hub and spoke model, which is the idea of a hybrid event where you maybe have like a hub or a main studio or wherever it is that you're producing. And then you have these little satellite events all over, wherever in the world they are, and small groups of people to come together. So imagine like your local chapter of your association coming together to attend the national conference, but you're just staying in the local Phoenix area, you know, in a conference room or something like that, right? Also smaller in general too. Like I think anyone who thinks that projection mapping and these crazy stages we used to have in 2019 are going to come back immediately, no way. People are going to be way more intimate, way smaller, right? I mean, you just look at everyone who is experimenting with hybrid right now, their in-person audiences are significantly smaller than they've ever been before. So great stuff. Engagement. I definitely agree with engagement too. I think that, you know, this year everyone wondered about Zoom fatigue and how do we avoid Zoom fatigue. And Damani Daniels has this awesome quote that everyone's talking about Zoom fatigue, but no one talks about Netflix fatigue or Disney Plus fatigue. This last weekend, I watched all of the Lord of the Rings movies, extended edition, back to back. That's 12 hours of movies, uninterrupted. But yet, we talk about how we can't have our attendees for a session longer than 30 minutes, an hour, right? So when it comes to these things, the production value and the engagement is the reason why people love this content. So you have to be thinking like a Netflix producer. You need to be thinking like a TV broadcast. How do we engage people? And that's going to be everything now moving forward. Now also, how do we design the engagement to cross in-person and virtual simultaneously, right? How do we cross that chasm and not allow those audiences to be separate from each other? I love it. Recordings of everything. I definitely agree. Micro experiences, gamification, media studios, audio. My gosh, people getting nice microphones and having good, like, you know, sounding audio. Ah, I would love to see that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my trends, and then we're going to dive into some Q&A in a couple minutes. So I'm going to quick fire through some of these. So first little micro trend to be aware of is that we've talked about this Zoom fatigue and how people have issues. I think we're transcending Zoom fatigue, and now we are hitting laptop fatigue. How many of you are just like sick of staring at computer screens and your laptop and your iPad, and you literally just want to look at anything other than a digital screen, right? Thumbs up. Oh my gosh, look at all those thumbs up coming up along the chat right now. You guys are awesome. I think that a reason why that's happening is because we're spending so much time on our computers, right? I think that there's going to be some survey that's going to come out that's going to say like screen usage shooting up tremendously. So I think what's going to happen is that people are sick of the traditional virtual event experience where they're going to be, using their mouse or, using their keyboard to kind of navigate it, right? And utilize and interacting with this flat screen. The flat screen is going to be always hard to beat because, we're not in this world right now where VR is going to become the number one thing. But I do want to talk about VR taking a little bit more of a place in the events industry. For years, event tech people have been like, this is the year for VR. VR is going to be the greatest trend ever. It's going to be awesome, right? And that's not ever happened. I think even this year, VR was not that big of a trend. And why? Because headsets aren't in everybody's households, right? I do think we're making tremendous efforts for it. The Oculus Quest 2 is pretty much as powerful as my setup that I spent $2,000 on a couple years ago, right? VR is becoming more and more accessible through things like Google Cardboard, right? And it's also becoming more acceptable because people are like, yeah, I can't leave my house. I want to experience something fun. So when it comes to the VR aspect, I think it's going to start to take place, but people are going to start craving alternative interactive experiences. So that's my trend. Alternative interactive experiences beyond the mouse click and the 2D eventional space. So what does this mean? I think VR is going to start to take a trend, and it's going to start to come. And if you have questions or comments or anything like that, use the Q&A panel and the interactivity because I'm going to be answering your questions in just a little bit. So feel free to keep those coming in as we're going along. So you guys are awesome. Keep the questions flying on in. The next level of VR, though, I think beyond it, is getting interactive touchscreens involved. I want to give a shout out to the company called Vibe. They make these awesome touchscreen computers, basically. And I think that a lot of people are really interested in this idea of having, a whiteboard where you can draw things and, pinch and zoom and all these things like that. And I think that for a while that was really expensive technology had, right? We could have an iPad that was really small that could do that, right? But like, what if we had a large screen we could interact with? Well, I think companies like Vibe are taking this to the next level because they're finding ways to lower the costs. For example, this big, gigantic 65-inch touchscreen display, 4K display, used to cost $10,000 for Microsoft with their studio, right? And if you want to have installed, you had to be at enterprise, maybe put it in a conference room. This display, $3,000. I can tell you, I have spent more than $3,000 to attend many conferences, usually high-end conferences, right? But why are we not considering that experience for our attendees? Saying something like, hey, our virtual conference costs $5,000 to attend. Part of that package is we're going to send you a touchscreen computer, which you can interact with, that you'll be able to whiteboard with, that comes with a webcam, that allows you to drag and drop and create this tactile experience. I think people are craving that level of engagement versus I'm paying $20 to sit and watch content for a couple days, right? People are looking for that next level of virtual experience, tactile and interactive. Again, speaking of interactive, post your questions in the interactivity panel, and I'd love to hear them. All right, next thing that we're going to do is talk about safety and security at events. Safety and security events back in 2019, 2018, 2017, when people heard that, they thought, oh, well, we got to make sure we avoid active shooters. We got to make sure that we have metal detectors. We need to make sure that our attendees have a safe place to go to, that we're bag checking everybody. But safety and security has all that. And now we also have to worry about cleanliness and making sure attendees feel safe. We have, antibacterial washing stations everywhere that, attendees don't feel the need to be so close to each other. I saw an event drawing for a hybrid event a couple weeks ago. They had people like literally within 3 feet of each other. And we have to, as event designers and event strategists and event executors, figure out how to create these safe experiences, right? When it comes to it. You know what that means. There's so much, we're literally researching it, we're practicing it in our daily lives, but that's gonna become the number one thing that attendees are gonna look for. It's gonna be the default facto. So I'll use this as an example. A couple months ago, I went to go see Tenet, the movie, in theaters. I'm a huge Chris Nolan fan. I said to myself, if I see this movie and I die seeing this movie, at least I'll have died seeing this movie. It was like my one thing I was willing to risk leaving my apartment for the entire time of quarantine. And you know what happened? No one asked about the sound system of the theater. No one asked about the screen quality, the chairs, the snacks. The first question all my friends asked was, what's their regulations around safety? What are they doing to keep the theater clean? All that sort of stuff is now the de facto when it comes to events. That's something to keep in mind. totally game changing, right? So, all right. And then when it also comes to big trends when it comes to events as well, is you guys talk a little bit about is leveling up the content and the quality of speakers and entertainers and everything like that. In fact, I think one thing that's going to need to level up when it comes to that experience is how do we manage speakers, exhibitor, or entertainment, all those things like that. Right now, the default answer for us when we do virtual events is, yeah, well, ship them a kit with a webcam and a light and everything like that. That's like the equivalent, and this is a quote from Brant Kruger, is walking into a breakout room of a conference and the speakers are on the floor, the microphones are on the floor, the lights are on the floor, the screen hasn't been built, and an AV technician walks in and says, yeah, so there's your speakers, your screen, your microphones, everything like that. Go ahead and set it up. I'll come back and check in you within an hour. That level of experience isn't going to work for a lot of our inexperienced speakers. So how are we going to help create a technology solution for speakers who don't understand how to have good audio quality, good video quality, all those things like that? So something to kind of keep in mind as we go forward is how do we create that next level experience for speakers? And I do believe that one of the solutions is that we need to start hiring more professional speakers who come with a nice camera, who come with a good microphone. And I'm not trying to like sell me an ace or way, guys. Like I speak to help educate. I don't speak for a living. This isn't my like normal day job on here. But I'm talking about that so many presenters and so many speakers are struggling to have good quality audio, good quality video. And I get it. There's some speakers out there that have good content that aren't professional speakers either. How can we help them get to that next level moving forward? And I think that's going to be a big trend we have to figure out this year. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have these experiences where people are like, yeah, that speaker was good, that one really sucked, everything like that as well. So, all right, we got about 13 minutes left or so. So I'd love to answer all of your questions. I'm sure you guys have started to put them into the chat so far. One thing I will do as well is that, just so everyone knows before we get into Q&A, we actually write our trends guide every year. We highlight in depth about these trends. We gather survey data from across all different event professionals across the world. And we'll be publishing that really, really soon. So if you head on over, I'll post a link in the chat as well. You guys want to subscribe to our newsletter where we post all of our awesome stuff and cover all the trends and all the cool things. Of course, my copy and paste doesn't want to work. Let's go ahead and give this a try. See if I can use my clipboard properly. There we go. All right. Valerie says, you're hired. You are awesome. So, all right. So, I guess I'll answer this question before we dive into the next couple questions. Is how do we deal with online fatigue? I think there's a high drop down, right? Yeah, like I think that one interesting statistic to me is when it looks at your events, how many people attend the first day and then come to the second day? If you see a high drop off, right? You see like a ton of people come on and then come down. Okay, yeah, there's definitely an engagement problem then at that time. So I've been told I have 7 minutes for Q&A, so we're going to do this really, really fast. So how do you deal with this online fatigue? I think good speakers, good content, easy to use platforms, spaced out white space, right? White space is the thing we started talking about in 2019, giving space for people to process things. Don't try to cram everything in too hard and fast, right? Give time for people to process. So, and by the way, feel free to vote up these questions, give them hearts so I know which ones you guys want to answer. So, let's go to this question. How do we set up an online event studio at home? Look at YouTubers. YouTubers, Twitch streamers. They've been doing this stuff for years. Literally, if you go on YouTube and search like YouTube studio or game streaming studio, you'll see videos where these, geeks like me talk about their camera and their microphone and how this light is set up and what light they're using and what technologies are they using to stream. It's all on there. I learned everything I needed to know about how to have a really good camera. In fact, I learned about the exact camera I'm using and setup through YouTube. So these guys are going out there sharing all their best practices right then and there. That's the best place I think you go to start with. The next suggestion I'd have is talk to your AV nerd friends, right? I can say it one because I'm an AV nerd guy. So hit them up. Say, hey, I'm looking at building out a studio. What camera do you recommend? What microphone do you recommend? Hey, if I give you $100, can you just come set it up for me, right? AV guys are out of work right now and are looking for things to do and also looking for work. Help transfer. If you're busy and you need an awesome studio, give them trade money for their expertise, just like we used to do when we had events, right? So continue to do that all day long. So I hope that answers your question, but YouTube, Twitch streamers, and ask your AV nerd friends. All right, next question is, how do you deal with online fatigue? Yep, okay, so we talked about this one a little bit a couple seconds ago. Let's go to the next one. What could be a fun event package for virtual events that's still affordable for event organizers? I probably need a little bit more context into what you mean by event package, what sort of things that you're looking for. I do think that you need to customize your event and make sure that you're assigning it to their attendee personas. So I'm going to drop a link into the Google Doc that's about building out your attendee personas. I think you got to start being strategic. Instead of saying, hey, starting with the how and the what we're going to do for the event, you need to start with the why. And if you really understand that what your attendees are looking to get out of it, there's a lot of affordable ways to do things. Live streaming is cheaper than ever. I remember when I had an internet radio station, what was that, 13 years ago? It cost me $400 a month to literally reach 200 people. You can now reach 10,000 people for free in 4K quality. Mind-blowing. Anything's possible. I think one of the things is if you want to keep things affordable, you got to understand the tech a little bit more. And that will help you out a ton. All right, let's go on to the next one. I probably just need a little bit more context. Feel free to contact me afterwards. Do you have any advice for how to create the feeling of togetherness and sharing experience with others while joining events online? Yes. So first thing I think is that you got to put faces to people's names, right? Far too often do we have avatars, usernames, and things like that. And what's interesting to me is that once you kind of get to know that there's a person on the other end, I think that builds a little bit more togetherness. I think a lot of times we also think to ourselves, well, online events is impossibly together. I grew up in chat rooms in high school, middle school, and I honestly learned a lot and built very deep relationships with people that I never met. I remember the first time that I met somebody that I had built a deep online relationship with. He eventually became my boss at my first internship when I was in middle school. And I never heard his voice. And then we finally played Quake online video game together and we did voice chat. And I was like, oh, so that's what your voice sounds like. And I think that it's really important to know that look at online communities that are already being built, that already have togetherness and are engaged, and just, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try to do this from scratch. And I think that will help you out a ton. But I think pictures of people helps a ton. I think looking at existing online communities, and I think gathering people about a united cause also helps a ton too. When people really believe in the same things, that can be very, very helpful. All right. I think I'm out of time. The questions going away. Hopefully I try to fit as much stuff in here as possible. Thank you, everybody.
That was really a lot of information. And I think that we can say that there's still a lot of optimism in the event industry.
Definitely. I think it's the amount of energy and positivity around it is just huge. I think that, as much as I'm sometimes a negative Nancy when it comes to all the things, I can't tell you how enlightening it is to see that when someone does post that they're at the airport, that it gets 300 likes on LinkedIn blows my mind. And it's just, I think, so cool to hear all the optimism that's coming in. And I think everyone's optimistic too for what can be, rather than just, hey, let's just do the same thing over and over again. But what can this look like in the future? And I think everybody's ready to change.
We'll get out of this stronger.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Way stronger.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Big applause to you. And I want to see those emojis flying. Let's thank Will. It was great having you here.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. And I'll post a link in the chat for the Google Doc one more time. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Please subscribe to our blog. Check out all the links that I posted. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the interwebs.
Perfect. And for everybody, let's jump onto the other next activity. You can select it and let's meet you there. Bye.